Let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're looking at a fascinating and highly controversial piece of political analysis. We are going to impartially unpack a recent sharp critique of a very specific event, a national leader of the Democratic Socialists of America sitting down with a delegation from the Chinese Communist Party. We'll map out exactly how political messaging can clash with reality, and why the specific words politicians use matter deeply to all of us.
And we're going to start right with the lightning rod of this whole critique. Listen to this exact phrase. China is an incredibly positive vision of socialism for everyone around the world. That single sentence, spoken by DSA leader Ahmed Hussein, is literally the catalyst for the entire argument we're breaking down today. The source treats this not as some offhand comment, but as a massive, defining statement of intent.
Section 1. The NY Delegation Meeting.
So to set the stage, here's what actually happened. Ahmed Hussein, acting as a leader for the Democratic Socialists of America, officially welcomed a delegation visiting New York all the way from Beijing. The critique we're analyzing hones in on this specific meeting to draw a hard, direct line between a faction of mainstream American left-wing politics and the Chinese Communist Party.
And just to prove this isn't some tiny fringe group, the source highlights a really crucial number: 200. That is how many DSA chapters exist nationwide. They have actual institutional leverage. I mean, they even claim credit for electing the mayor of America's biggest city, who, side note, the host jokingly suggests should probably be deported. But jokes aside, the message to the audience is crystal clear here. Pay close attention, because this organization holds real political power.
Section 2. Rhetoric of the masses. Now, let's look at the actual words used during that meeting. The DSA leader explicitly talked about trying to, quote, push socialism into the masses. That specific verb, push, is really interesting. The source points out a fascinating disconnect here between how political organizers talk behind closed doors and how democratic systems are actually, designed to function.
And the critique launches a pretty sharp counterattack on this exact phrasing. I mean, referring to everyday, normal citizens as the masses that you push things onto. The argument here is that this sounds way more like the language of a drug dealer than a public servant. The host's point is that in a functioning democracy, you don't push things on the masses. You ask citizens for their vote.
Section 3. Defining a positive vision.
Which brings us to a rather glaring irony pointed out by the source. The DSA leader is freely standing in New York, using his fundamental freedom of speech to loudly praise the Chinese system. But freedom of speech is the exact right that very system actively suppresses. The source uses a great analogy here, comparing this lack of self-awareness to a guy standing safely in a lifeboat, enthusiastically trying to pitch everyone on moving to a completely different boat, one that actively has a massive leak in it.
Section 4. The Human Rights Critique.
To systematically dismantle this idea of a positive vision, the source runs down a really grim reality check. We're talking about a digital firewall designed to completely blind citizens to the outside world. 1 million Uyghurs detained in concentration camps. The historical tragedy of Tiananmen Square. A dystopian social credit system that literally dictates whether you can buy a train ticket. And those extreme COVID measures where authorities actually welded people's apartment doors shut from the outside. The source poses a sarcastic yet honestly chilling question. Is a government that welds people into their own homes really the positive vision we want to bring to, say, Ohio?
Section 5. Socialism versus communism.
So this clash brings up a massive contradiction between the group's public branding and their private actions. Publicly, the DSA identifies as harmless, democratic socialists. The source jokes that this usually conjures up cozy images of Copenhagen. Terrible health care, nice sweaters, expensive eyewear. But the reality presented here? When they wanted to discuss a positive vision, they didn't consult Denmark. They literally sat down with the Communist Party from Beijing.
And according to the critique, this completely shatters their public branding. Meeting with the CCP to praise an authoritarian model proves, at least in the host's eyes, a fundamental political failure. He argues they simply do not know the difference between the democratic socialism they publicly champion and actual real-world communism.
As this intense analysis wraps up, the source draws one final, incredibly sharp distinction. It's a stark contrast between how political organizers view the public and how reality actually operates.
The critique argues that groups like the DSA view the country merely as a target market, just faceless masses to be pushed and managed. But the reality is, the American people are individual voters, and only one of those groups gets to be right on Election Day. It leaves us with a pretty vital question. If you treat citizens like a theoretical mass to be pushed around, what actually happens when those masses finally step into the voting booth? Thanks so much for joining me as we unpack this explainer today. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.